The New Orleans Saints in week 2 had the San Francisco 49ers coming into the dome, and it's starting to shape up. This game's more about who's not going to play than who is going to play. We'll break it all down, and I'll throw a prediction out there to you. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. Really thinking this game is building up to more about who's not going to play than who's actually going to play in the game for really two reasons. The main one's the injury report. We'll take a look at that real quick. And if you were paying attention to this during the week, you probably noticed that we had quite a few guys that were listed as limited practice and or listed even if they fully practice, like Jordan Howden with an injury designation on him that carried over, I think, from last week. Probably the same thing with Frisco. They had more players listed than we did. But the big takeaway points is we knew Julian Blackman was going to be out having this shoulder surgery, supposed to be season ending, but they haven't placed him on IR yet. We'll see what happens there, but he's definitely not going to be around this game or anytime soon. And Penning and Young, having missed last week and not practiced at all this week, that was almost a definite given they weren't going to play again this week. So really, everybody else is good except for Fuaga's the question mark. Didn't practice, couple limited. This is if you heard anything during the week that he mentioned it was a pain issue that it started bothering him at halftime, tried to play through it in the third quarter, and he just couldn't keep going. Don't know what's going on there, but I just will say this. I do not want to jeopardize the rest of the season or especially the rest of his career by doing something stupid right now with the potential knee injury. I'll just trust for now that the team's got this handled and we've got no worries there. But if this turns into something that comes back and bites us on the ass, I'm going to be very, very upset about it. Just putting it out there. George Kittle's got hurt for Frisco in the Seattle game. Hamstring. He's already been IR. It's going to miss several weeks, so won't be available Sunday. And right when this injury report came out, the big news was that Brock Purdy is also going to be out for this game, and they're starting Mac Jones. Now, they did leave Juwan Jennings and Trent Williams, and that would both be significant, just like Fuaga would be for us, if they're unable to play, whether they're ruled out on, and this goes for all three players, there two and R1. If they're ruled out sometime Saturday, or even if it's going to game time decision on Sunday and then they're suddenly inactive because they couldn't go. So I think that's three to keep an eye on. Three things or three players that, depending on who plays or who doesn't play out of that group, could also add a big, I don't want to say big, but could factor into causing one team or the other a problem by not having them available. The other thing about who's not playing in this game, and this is something that sneakily kind of flew under the radar, and I just caught this a couple of days ago. Um, Jason Fitzgerald at overthecap.com does some really good work there. He does a roster retention at the beginning of every year, basically going through all 32 teams roster and going, what percent of players are returning from the previous year? And so whoever's number one in his retention has like 90% of their players coming back. We are nowhere near that. The Saints are actually 24th. We have 54.8% of our players as of that Sunday when we played Arizona. It's changed a little bit since then because we've had some roster shuffle going on during the week, and I'm sure Frisco has too. But we were 24th, 54.8%. Nearly 50% of our roster's been turned over since 2024. 49ers are 25th, 53.8%. One full percentage point less, which I guess basically probably boils down to about one player. But to prove the point, both of these teams are rebuilding. And normally, when you looked at Frisco, especially with Rob Saleh returning to run the defense again after the Jets thing didn't work out as head coach, you would normally know exactly what you're getting in Frisco. But you know the idea, you know what they want to do. They're not shy about it. Kubiak, excuse me, thinking of Kubiak, who we had last year, so we're well aware of what Shanahan's trying to do since Kubiak's kind of one of the guys out of history. But Shanahan wide zone, play action, RPOs, move players around, pre-snap motion, movement after the snap, cause confusion and chaos, and they don't really care in that scheme, much like us last year, where the defensive players are as much as where they aren't, and trying to find an explosive playmaker with the ball in that space of grass. And it to a lesser extent, it's not that different what Kellen Moore did last year when he's calling it for Philly or what he's trying to do with the Saints, especially from what we saw on Sunday. When you're looking at the two defensive coordinators, same thing. They're both known quantities, and they're both kind of trying to do the same thing on defense. They're going to show you some multiple fronts. They're going to use some personnel around differently. They're they're trying to trick you before the snap, during the snap, and after the snap. They're trying to force you to, as the offense, to do something you don't want to do that they want you to do. The real question is you've got a whole for both teams a whole bunch of new players showing up, and both teams have now lost. Kittles and Purdy for them is a big, big deal in that offense. Two known quantities. You knew exactly what you're going to get there. You got one of the best tight ends in football, and you got a guy, since he showed up as a rookie, showed that he was a perfect fit for what they're trying to do on offense. He can run that offense really, really well. On our side, with missing Blackman was a key cog in that defense looking so good against Arizona. Are we going to get some young guys like Sanker? You know, Howden looks like he's fully healthy and ready to go. Can they come in and fill in that gap? So there's question marks there. And then that's not the personnel for both teams that you would normally be familiar with aren't here anymore. Now, when you talk about the Saints defense against the 49ers offense, like we said, we know what they're trying to do, and we basically know who they're trying to do it with. And that's why if Jennings or Williams, especially Williams, can't play, kind of evens up the losing the Blackman thing. Because it's almost like losing Blackman and Kittles kind of washes each other out. And it may just come down to what they get out of Mac Jones about how good that offense is going to operate. But make no mistake about it, they still have CMC. McCaffrey is a handful. He's a problem. They're going to try to get the ball to him as much as he can. And if you look, Saints fans know McCaffrey better than anybody because we had to deal with him for twice a year with Carolina. Now he's over in Frisco and rolling right back in our face again, going, a guy he's one of those really special running backs, just like Alvin. It's like the more I go through this and you look at these teams going in the situations they're in, they kind of just keep flashing a mirror back and forth at each other. I think the biggest thing on the 49ers offense, like I said, is Mac Jones, especially if he misses any more parts like Williams or Jennings, Kittles is going to be a big deal. Will he be able to operate in that offense? I think that's the big question mark. And I think as far as our defense, if we clean up some of the tackling issues and some of those little issues we had last week that came up and bit us, probably need to be a little more physical too on defense. In some areas, but for the most part, I'm fairly happy the way the defense performed. Just improve, and you can't miss tackles against these guys, especially like somebody like McCaffrey. That's going to crush you. Clean that up. Stay away from the penalties. I feel like our defense can hang in there and give us at least a similar, but hopefully better, because I want to see improvement from what we saw against Arizona. So I feel pretty good about this matchup. It's when we get our offense to their defense, I get a little worried because you cannot miss blocks. You cannot have the shoot yourselves in the foot penalty BS we were doing. Everybody in that front has to play better. Being physical on offense, you better be, because they're going to be a Robert Saleh defense is going to be physical. They're going to be technically sound, no matter who's out there playing. They're probably not going to miss very many tackles, if any. So you're going to have to block them up better than you blocked up Arizona, because you're going to have not be able to rely on Rattler's scramble ability, or guys like Alvin and Kendre Miller banging some extra yards after contact to kind of keep your average runs where you need it to be. So this is going to be a little different beast. You're going to be dealing with Fred Warner at linebacker, and you're going to be dealing with Nick Bosa, and God only knows what Sal is going to dream up to do with him. You could have to deal with both of those guys. Like Greenlaw's not there anymore. Kinlaw's not there anymore. They've lost some of their big pieces over the last couple of years. They've still got good players. You don't know how they're going to kind of fit in. You've got one game of film. You've got one game of stats, and that's it. So, kind of from the historical side, best way I can put it is offensively, we can't screw around with these guys. Because if you do, you're not going anywhere. Now, I did go ahead and look and see what they did offensively and defensively against Seattle, just to kind of put it in perspective. But I mean, one game in, can you really rank anything? Not really, not. But you can get an idea because like I said, what those two coaches are trying to do, and they still have good personnel in place to be able to do it with. But Frisco's offense against Seattle, they 389 total yards. They gave up 259 on defense. They had 5.4 average plays on offense. Seattle had 5.2. So basically, it's a wash. Um, they converted 50% on third down. They held Seattle to 27%. That's a big number and a big difference and a problem, and something we struggled with last week. They converted 29% on fourth down. Seattle, 0 fourth down conversions. 60% in the red zone, 2 touchdowns, a field goal. Seattle was 100%. They only got down there twice. They kicked a field goal. They scored a touchdown. Average rush was Frisco, which is kind of surprising. When they're normally a little better than this. They only ran for 3.4 yards per carry, but they gave up 3.1. It's almost like every statistical category they just keep getting a slight edge on you and put you at a little bit more disadvantage. Passing yards, big edge. They had 277. Seattle only 150, but both quarterbacks ran north of 70% completion percentage. So it wasn't like they were throwing bad balls all around. They were getting caught. Just Frisco a little better at picking up some yards after the catch. Both teams had 1 sack. Both teams had 2 turnovers, so it's a wash right there. No sack advantage, no turnover advantage either way. But those third down conversions, some of those little hidden extra yardage in there and all that stuff we were just talking about, that Frisco just seems to keep having a little edge. Well, it turned into a 37-minute, 58-second time of possession for them in a 60-minute game. I mean, that leaves Seattle with the ball 22 minutes. It's basically 15. It's basically Frisco had the ball a whole quarter longer than Seattle did, more or less. So, you know, that's the kind of thing. That's what Shanahan wants to do, is grind you down with a consistent running attack. He wants to hit you with the eye candy. He wants the motion, everything else, all the stuff we were trying to do with Kubiak last year on offense. He's the guy that invented most of that crap. They know how to do it. So that's what I'm saying. That the pin in this may be Jones coming in at quarterback and seeing what he can do. I felt good about this game even before the season, in the sense that it was kind of two evenly matched teams, both of whom are in a rebuild. I just didn't realize it was like at a 50% clip right now as we're going into week 2. But kind of a little similar circumstance. Whereas last week we faced a team that's over a year into their rebuild and not kind of at the same point of us. We think we've improved our coaching that should be able to keep up with a Shanahan and a Salah. So far, so good. The returns on that early are good. So I was feeling good on this. When they named Mac Jones as the starter, I started feeling really, really better. Like we should win this game. I really feel like we should win this game. So I think it boils down to this. When you look at your matching up two NFL teams, everybody's going to start at the quarterback. You have to. It's kind of the most important position. You're going to think about quarterback play and what do you have and what you don't have. They don't have a guy that, as a rookie, led him to the NFC Championship game, and as a second-year guy, led him to the Super Bowl. They've got Mac Jones. We've got Rattler. And I feel like I know this. If you were going to come up to me and said, "Look, Coach Tim, um, your starter's not available, or this guy's not available. You've got to choose between Spencer Rattler or Mac Jones to start this week on Sunday. Where you going?" I'm going Rattler 100% of the time. I feel like most people would probably feel that way, except for possibly some Frisco fans, but who knows? Let me know down in the comments if that was the choice. But I feel more confident with Rattler. I've seen what he can do, and last week he surpassed my expectations. I think he played very solid, very well. I think we can do some stuff to help him, and we're going to have to, because again, I think that salad defense is going to be a little stiffer than what we ran into against Arizona. But overall, there's a 3-point spread on this game. I feel like that's probably about right. I think like a late field goal is gonna either a make or a miss is gonna kind of decide how this game plays out. So I'm going Saints 16, 49ers 13. I think both teams can limit the other one in touchdowns. Key for us is going to be to handle McCaffrey on offense and on defense. You better know where Warner and Bosa at, especially at all times. But just stay away from the stupid mistakes and realize you might have to grind this game out. But what you can't do is let them do what they want to do because they're going to grind over you. They're going to roll right over you like a steamroller, kind of like they did to Seattle, which was also a one-score game. But kind of watched a little bit of it, and you kind of look at the numbers. You go, how much was Seattle really in that game? You know, a lot like when you looked at our game and looked at our numbers against Arizona, you're asking how much really were the Saints in that game? I think we could kind of achieve a comfort level like that at home. Start fast on offense and get points this time. You know, and defense. You I understand we losing Blackman and that's significant, but the defense has to pick up where they left off against Arizona, and more importantly, get better. So there you have it. That's the way I'm seeing it this week. And I will be seeing it live because I will be in the dome. So just to before we go, quick catch up on next week. Probably won't be dropping any videos until Monday at the earliest. So I'm going to wait for the film to come out. We're just going to jump into reviewing and film review and everything else. Get those in, and then we'll get prepped up for next week's game. But what I'm hoping, what I think is going to happen, I'm being bold on this, while we're doing that review of Sunday's game against Frisco and prepping for next week, we're going to be doing it with a smile on our face because I really think we can win this game. So please, Saints, don't make me look like an idiot. So if you like what you saw, it's your first time here, please hit the like, the share, the subscribe, all that stuff. Keep stroking the algorithm. We're so close to 1,000 subs. I feel like we ought to be able to do it this weekend. Each and every one of you, I thank you for your support in the growth of this channel from last year when we started this thing. You guys, you ladies, y'all overwhelm me. Thank you very much. I am planning on seeing you next week with some good news and some smiling faces because we'll be 1-1 on the season. Let's all hope I'm right. So, till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and hoot at.